Okay, morning all. Welcome to this morning's AGP webinar. Obviously, thanks for taking the time to pop along. I'm Lisa from the AGP office with Winning Pitch, just here to help Nicola facilitate this morning's webinar. I'll pass you over to her in a moment, but just before I do, I know some of you are already aware of, can you just put your microphones on to mute through the presentation just to avoid any interference or background noise, please. We will do a question and answer session later on. Obviously, then you can come off your microphones, or if you prefer to ask the questions, just pop it into the chat facility at the bottom there. Can I just get you to check your chat facility is working and also help me to register exactly who is with us this morning? Can you just pop your name into the chat there for me, please? If you need any support during this webinar, I'll be monitoring the chat facility. So if you've got any problems there, just pop in there for me. The webinar is being recorded just to help us collate any questions or comments which may be missed during the webinar. If you have any questions or concerns about this, please let me know. Following on from the webinar, I'll be sending out 2 emails. We do require a signature from you just to confirm that this webinar took place this morning and that you attended. This is for the Welsh Government. So they'll come through via the hello sign. If you could get those returned to me as soon as possible, that would be great. Takes less than a minute and really easy to follow. You'll also receive an email with a link to 2 surveys to provide feedback to us. Very helpful to obviously to our the people presenting, so that we can look out for future presentations if there's anything we're missing, to give you some further help through this crisis. So on that note, I will hand you over to Nicola. So carry on.
Morning, everybody. Hope you're well. I'm going to just rattle through because we've got a bit to talk about, and look forward to receiving any of your questions. Thank you ever so much for joining me. My name is Nicola Rowlett-Jones. I married a Welshman, but my company is called the Nicola Rowlett Group, so I had to keep my first name as well. So Nicola Rowlett-Jones, based in Cardiff, and I'm a business consultant focusing on positivity, resilience, team dynamics, leadership, and transformational aspects of business. We used to call it growth. I'm not sure that's really appropriate in today's new world, so we've changed that to transformation. And today we're going to be looking, hope you can all see my screen. It says contents. Can just give a thumbs up if you can see the screen. And we're going to look at what's happening at the moment, the current situation. Thank you, Kate. And we're then going to look at what resilience is, look at the role of leaders and leadership in this crisis, and any crisis really, and how that's important for building team resilience, both before, after and during a crisis, and obviously the personal things we can do to increase our positivity and those of the people around you. And I just said to, I was just saying to the team earlier, actually this can apply to yourself, to your business, to your family, to your friends. Some of the things that we'll be talking about today, anybody can do. And obviously resilience on an individual level is really important, as well as on the team level. So some of these things you might be able to apply to other aspects of your life, and it'd be interesting to see if any of you do that. So, but I think really the current situation is a little bit like this video here. Not quite sure where all the balls are at the moment, and things keep constantly moving. It's sort of like oil and water. You can't quite put your hand on what's happening with the situation. It's not staying still. One thing might take our attention one day, and the next we're looking at the opposite side of the business, or there's some government support from one side, but then at the next bit we're not quite sure what to do with our products and our clients, and things are happening to our clients as well happening to our suppliers. So it's a bit of a moving feast at the moment, and that pretty much is making people feel some of the following things. There'll be a lack of control. I'm sure you feel that as well. There's uncertainty about the future. We don't know what's going to happen, and uncertainty is not great for anxiety, worry and concern. If you add in the aspect of remote working or being isolated or being at home, then a lot of people are also feeling lonely. They've not spoken to people. I've got a friend who lives on their own, hasn't spoken to anybody apart from virtually for obviously 4 or 5 weeks now. But actually, even if they're in a house full of people, some people can feel quite trapped. There might not be any space. Some of your team might be working in a house with 4 or 5 adults, and they might have to work in the bedroom as well as being with the rest of the family in living in the bedroom because there's no space. So they might not necessarily be on their own, but they might feel trapped, they might feel lonely, and that's obviously all causing us to feel different things to what we normally do. So the questions here, the first thing to do in any situation with regards to resilience and team building in a crisis is to ask yourself the question, what are you noticing about yourself? What are you noticing about your team? How are they different? When was the last time you spoke to them? When you saw them on a virtual call, how were they dressed? What was the demeanour? Were they all smiley and bubbly like they normally are? Or actually were they a bit quieter than normal? Did they ask lots of questions? Were they concerned and they wanted the answers to lots of information? All those things we need to address in the current situation. And pretty much that's because we are looking at some of this crisis affecting and threatening our basic human needs. And this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which was written in 1943. But you can see, if you look at the red and the orange sections at the bottom, personal security, employment, resources, health, property, that is a safety issue. And obviously the theory of human motivation, if you undermine your safety, your health, your resource, your employment, that is where your focus goes as an individual. So the current situation is really threatening some of our basic needs as human beings. You might also say it's affecting friendship, intimacy, sense of connection, absolutely, but it goes a bit deeper than that, and we need to, as leaders, make sure we're helping people understand. So what is resilience, and how can that help with what we've just talked about? Well, actually, the definition of resilience is the capacity to recover from difficult situations and recover quickly. It's that spring back, it's that bounceability, it's the ability to actually acknowledge that something is not quite right whilst making a plan to get back into the right shape, as it's describing there. Not complete blind optimism. Those people that are rah-rahing and it's going to be fun, we're going to be fine, don't worry about it. Sometimes there might be some overcompensation there happening. And it's also not those people that just are not acknowledging it's happening either. That, there's got to be some recognition of the current situation we're in a really factual way. So let's move on to what this means for team resilience. I'm moving quite quickly through this, chaps. Please, if you want me to slow down, just somebody shout. But hopefully we'll cover the questions off later. So what does this mean? What is team resilience? Harvard Business Review did a study of a number of coaches in the United States, and they said there were 4 things that resilient teams had. And there was over 2,000 people were interviewed for this particular study. The first thing was that they completed the task together as one. They had a common view of what teamwork meant. Now, what that meant was that they knew their place within the team. They understood their roles and their responsibility, and they accurately understood what needed to happen to complete the task together and their role within that. So nobody stepped on toes, nobody was questioning or second guessing what their role was. They had the same vision of what the team was all about and what their position was within the team. They were also able to improvise when needed. So being able to take the existing knowledge that they had, reconfigure that, think about it in a different way, turn it upside down, whatever you need to do to come up with that new idea to solve the problem. And finally, they had a place of psychological safety. Now, this is an area of development that people like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, the big technology companies are spending a lot of time and thought on at the moment. But it's about an ability to have the team give their ideas freely in a safe space where they won't be undermined or challenged in a negative way. At the point of crisis or a point of change and transformation, actually, all ideas should be expressed and should be investigated, and that might lead you down a path to resolve something that's been causing issues. But actually, if somebody doesn't feel safe, if they feel like they're going to be undermined or they're going to be laughed at, then they won't speak up. So obviously these are the 4 common traits of good, resilient teams. And obviously as a leader, our job is to create that diversity of thinking to move us forward. Now, if we add that, that's what we need to have as a resilient team. If we add the dynamic of change in, and many of you will understand the 3 C's on the left there, this is from the Centre of Creative Leadership, but it's known throughout the business world. You know, in change, there are 3 things they said you had to do originally, and that's communicate why the change is important, collaborate to make sure you can actually encourage the change to happen, and then commit and be persistent to get that change happen. But actually that's moved on a bit, and in recent times we've added confident and celebration to those areas. I think actually there's another 2 that we need to add in particularly at the moment when things are really very uncertain. So we're not certain of the change. We're in change. We're in the middle of change, and we're still very uncertain. And there's so many questions that haven't been answered. So I think there's a couple of things we need to add. And the first one is real clarity of what we do know and what we don't know. And then the other area I think which is important is challenge and coaching your team to be more resilient and to be stronger in this time. So what do we need to do? Well, at this time we need really strong leaders, and it starts with you. So as a resilient team, we also need a resilient leader. So a lot of the things we're going to talk about will help you become a resilient leader. So you need to organize your response to the change. You need to help take back a little bit of control, and you need to do this in a really calm and assured and optimistic way. So have you been doing that? Have you had a quick look and think a bit of a reflection on how you are behaving? Are you being decisive? Are you being persistent? Are you keeping the relevant information in connection and in communication with all your team? Are you being negative in your communication with people, or are you being positive? So, be more decisive. The way we're going to sort of talk about team resilience, this will help you do that. But you need to be the decisive person. People need strong leaders in times of transformation, crisis. You need to be the buffer. Sometimes you have to take that hard knock, but you haven't to let the team know there's been a knock, unless it's really important that they understand that. You need to be persistent, keep people traveling in the same direction, and you need to make sure you're doing that in a really positive way. So you need to build the confidence in the team that actually, although we might be uncertain times, you know exactly what you're doing and where you're going. Or this is the bit we do know where we're going and what we're doing. And actually, these are the things we'll come back to, and we'll keep an eye on them. And when we do know them, I'll pass that information on to you. So the first area, which links into clarity and commitment and confidence, is the purpose. If there's ever a moment when I don't quite know what I'm doing in my business, or if I feel that I've lost a little bit of focus, which we'll come on to next, I always go back to why. Why am I doing what I do? Why am I in business? What is the just cause that I am trying to improve? Why am I doing what I do? What is the need? In effect, you need to be, as Simon Sinek says, I'm quite a follower of Simon Sinek, you need to be the chief vision officer. At times like this, people need to understand the company values, the individual values, and why you do what you do. Remind them of the impact that your business will have on the community, on your customers or clients, on your stakeholders, on the greater good. Remind them and keep monitoring activities that look at the long-term vision. Because when it gets tough, reminding them that actually, do you know what, we're doing this because we want a more sustainable planet. We're doing this because we're trying to help this community. We're doing this because there's an injustice here and we want to see an end to this injustice. That helps people dig a little bit deeper. I suppose if you think, you think of Churchill and wartime, that's what he did. He asked people, he said, there will be great sacrifice, but we will get through this for the greater good. So that's what we need to do. The first foremost thing is remind yourself and then remind your team of why you are doing what you're doing. And that why won't change. Actually, crisis and transformation just makes you look at the why a different way, gives you an opportunity to look at that in a different way. Then the second area is focus. So you must focus on the right thing. You've gone back, you've got that essence again, you understand your why. Actually, successful leaders look at the why they're doing something and then the what they're going to do. So focus on the decisions and why you're making those decisions and why those decisions are important. I would suggest, in terms of building resilience, you focus on the positive things that you can do to adapt to the change. There's no point in my book focusing on a negative that you can't change. And my dad used to say, my dad says things, he's got some phrases. My dad always used to say, 95% of things you worry about will never happen. The other 5%, you pretty much can't do anything about them. They're going to happen. So figure out how you solve them and take some positive action to make those worries go away. And then focus on the present, be in the now, but make that in relation to the long term. So again, linking that back to your long-term business. So clear goals, make sure you set the direction based on the purpose, keep everybody on the same course, constantly be reminding people of why you're doing what you're doing, and then to help them focus on the positive, not the negative or not the problems, I often create a risk or a problem register. When I do workshops, I call it the car park. And you just park it. We're just going to park that issue over there for a moment. We won't lose it. We'll remember it. And when the time is right, we'll come back and we'll solve it later on. So if people in your team are constantly getting really tripped up on the negatives, just say to them, you know what, that's really good insight. Can we just park that for a moment? We will come back to it. We'll not lose it, but let's focus on the things we can change at the moment. We also need to connect. Connections at this time are really important. I'm sure that many of you are focusing on keeping connected with your clients, your team, your suppliers, your stakeholders, your supporters, your family, your friends. When you can't sort of connect in a physical sense, we need to connect in other ways. So make sure you are connecting with the people around you. Not only is it to understand them and to make sure they're okay and to make sure you see any behavioural changes, but also they can give you intelligence. So if your team are also connected to the outside world, what information could they bring you back about competitive advantage? That makes the team be more external looking, helps you with your resilience. Also, it's important to keep connected, to inform them, to keep them informed of relevant changes to the business, to help them with the understanding and the information. The lack of control sometimes, the lack of information, the lack of communication often results actually more in the fact they just feel like they're not involved and they're not connected. So actually the more that you can keep connected with them and keep them informed, the better. So how to do that? Give them a place to check in. That could be virtual coffee mornings. It could be water cooler moments like a video club or a film club, or having lunch together once a week. And you want to encourage them to speak up. You might ask them to send you a quick note of the positive things they've done in the day once a day. You might want to send them something if your team are working really hard and actually you're a business that's really busy at the moment. Actually sending them a little something from Amazon or a voucher for them to have a book of something like that would be a fantastic way to just keep connections and keep people informed. Your clients, your customers, you might not necessarily have anything you want to sell them at the moment. That might not be appropriate, but keeping them in touch, getting them to understand where you are as a business. I'm sending weekly messages to my previous customers, current customers and current prospects, just telling them how we're getting on, what we've worked on, what positive things we've understood, what kind of support we've seen in the marketplace to help our clients. Just keeping people connected and offering the olive branch of, hey, if you want a virtual coffee, just give me a shout. What you're looking for with this connection is you're looking to find and keep the meaningful relationship you already have with people, or you're looking to develop the familiar relationship to be a bit more intimate and to be a bit more meaningful in the long term. Many of you will know the know, like, trust model, which is about building rapport and relationships. And what we're trying to do here is find the shared value. Well, at the moment, that's a bit easier. We've all got quite a lot to share. We're all in the same position. As in, we're all in a situation of change and of flux and transformation. Some of you might be in a positive, optimistic, opportunist mode of action at the moment because your business is going really well. Some of you may be in a just protective mode, but ultimately we're all being affected by something that gives us a shared value. And so you can develop the relationships with your team and with your stakeholders to build confidence and to build a more meaningful relationship. Once we've built that, collaboration is a fantastic tool to help build resilience. And it's giving your team, your suppliers, your customers, whoever you might be wanting to communicate more with and build more resilience with, an opportunity for them to control something. And when things are so uncertain and there's a feeling of lack of control, any opportunity to control something just gives somebody a bit of a positive boost and a bit more of resilience. So we want to stop the complaining and we want to start solving problems. And to do that, we need to give the team some trust and some autonomy and provide them with the opportunities to be to improvise, to be creative, to play with different problems and to find a solution. Now, in some teams, if your resilience is a little low, then you might want to fake that a little bit. And I wouldn't suggest creating a problem out of nowhere to get them to solve it, but it might be a problem that's not really that much of a problem. But actually, if it's a quick win, it will build momentum, create positivity. Well, we solved that one, great, let's move on to the next one, a bit of a stepping stone. Also, collaboration could just actually be within your team. So getting a buddy system, a mentoring system will help people connect, will also help them, join forces on a particular project or an idea. And that means that you're getting two collaborative sort of benefits. One is that communication and the understanding and the connection, and also the collaboration to help build the solutions to some of the challenges you're facing. And collaboration is really good if you can have diverse teams. So having people that don't normally work together look at problems from different angles often will find a very creative solution than not. We want to coach. I said that I would add in coaching. I think at this time, coaching people is really important, and it helps people make better decisions. And most of you probably will know the GROW model, goals, reality, options, and will. But I think it's a really good model. Just even virtually, you can do this with your team, day in, day out, week in, week out, to help people learn new skills and to help them solve problems. Again, it's creating a connection between you and them. I would always focus on their strengths rather than necessarily their weaknesses, and I would grow their strengths at this time because that helps grow their resilience. Focusing on the negatives, although you might want to develop that skill within them, it's going to potentially at this stage when people are uncertain undermine. But actually, if you can reframe the mindset to focus on their strengths and what they bring to the business, that makes them more confident. Visualizing the positive outcome, focusing on their strengths means that they'll develop more. Once they start again to get that momentum, you will see them then want to look at some of the more harder challenges, some of the more difficult weaknesses, and they'll want to try and look at those. And then finally, with regards to the C's, it's about celebrating. We do need to celebrate, however small. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the stat, but there is a stat that talks about negative things being remembered, sort of say 5 or 6 or 7 times more than positive things. And so with that being the case, every time you have a positive thing to celebrate that you think is worth celebrating, you must celebrate it. It's so good for morale. And lead by example in terms of celebrating. Celebrating doesn't necessarily have to be having a beer or a glass of wine, although it could be, of course, but it might be having a little virtual party or having some work-life balance. So saying to everybody, do you know what, we've done a great job this week, guys. Have an hour off. Go and have an hour off and go and sit in the garden and go for a walk or whatever it might be that we can do at this time. But celebrating. But what do you celebrate? Well, the best kind of celebrations are the ones that are determined by the team. So in 4 disciplines of execution, they talk about the team developing the scorecard that measures success. Because if you develop the score for the game that you're playing, then actually you're more interested in what the score is going to be and what the outcome of that score is. So if you can celebrate the scorecard that the team have developed, and you can celebrate the successes no matter how small. A good idea for that is maybe get people to send you a journal each day of all the good things they've done, and the things that they thought were really great for the day and things they're grateful for. And also, if you can catch people doing something brilliant, go out and look as the leader for somebody doing something great. You might find some other stuff that needs to be changed and trained and whatever, that's fine. But I wouldn't mention that so much at the moment when you're building resilience. What I would mention is the great stuff they've done. Right now, let's build on that. Can we just go and take some of those really positive aspects in that particular job you've done and apply them to this particular task and job? So that's sort of, for me, as a leader, running through those, they're the things that we need to do. We need to, I'm just going to run really quickly back to here. We need to make sure we're giving clarity to the team and we're committed to focusing on the right things. We need to make sure that we are collaborating and we're creating opportunities for the team to collaborate together, to give them confidence, to solve some of these challenges we're facing. Communication is obviously important to connect with people. Not only does it give you information about your team and how they're coping and their health and their well-being, but also it gives you market intelligence and intelligence about your stakeholders, your suppliers. It might create you some connection to think of a new collaborative idea to work on that might be the next big thing in your business. But coaching and challenging people to be better, to personally develop, to get them to focus on something other than the change, the transformation. If they focus on themselves and focus on personal development, again, it's something they can control. And then obviously celebrating the successes when you see them. There's an American way of looking at this in terms of crisis, and that is to have purpose, which we talked about. So that's your focus, that's your vision, that's the impact that you have on your society. To play. So when you're playing, and that might mean creativity, it might be improvisation, it de-stresses the situation and it helps you create a win if you're solving a problem. Again, those are really good things for team resilience. And then potential. So focusing on somebody's personal achievement and having goals for the individual and the company, and that sense of potential, that sense of achievement. Yes, we can do it. Yes, we did it. Come on, we can do the next thing. Will help you build momentum and team resilience moving forward. Just to recap, just in a different way, because I know we all learn in different ways, so basically what we just said, you need to assume responsibility, control how you respond, look at the long term and do the work with the purpose you set out for. Reframe the mindset. So look at what you and they are doing and seeing how you're looking at it in a positive way, and remind the person that they are resilient and remind them of their strengths. We need to stop people complaining. We also need to stop complaining as leaders, and we need to start solving the problems. Visualize that positive outcome, have some fun, and then celebrate the successes no matter how small. So that's a quick rundown of team resilience. I just thought this is not today's session, but I thought it might be interesting to talk a little bit just about business resilience. I'm talking to the team about potentially doing another session about how to make your business resilient. We're just developing a product in our organization about that, but anyway, that's not about what today's about. But so this is just a sort of a very quick one sheeter on business resilience. The first thing I would always look at is shoring up your cash flow position, and if you need to reposition your cash situation, and that might be, I suppose, anything really, from making sure your invoices are coming in, to changing your invoice timescales, to calling in your creditors early, to renegotiating things like rent, for example. We've just renegotiated our rent and our offices for a short while, to even getting rid of the sort of discretionary spend that might not necessarily be needed at this time. Then have a look at future business planning. So start with the end in mind. Have a look at currently, as we said, where we are, and then have a look at where you think we might end up in 6 months or 12 months or 2 years or 3 years. And then once you've figured out those two positions, figure out what the plan is to get there. And we'll come on to that in a second. With that in mind, though, any planning needs to be modular. We talked about it there. Developing commercial plans needs to be developed in a modular way, so that you get to a certain point, you can then make a decision about whether it's worth the risk to move to the next stage. If it's not gone well, then you can pull back in terms of finances and resources. So if you are looking at the future planning, start with the end in mind, figure out where you need to get to, and build it in modular to get there. I would currently be looking at recession proofing my business. So how do you develop your resource and financial position? For me, that's understanding where your business financially is and how much your business can either increase by or decrease by before you have to then start making different decisions. So I've done some modeling recently where I've taken the business and I've said, okay, if we lose 10% of revenue, this is going to happen. If we lose 20% of revenue, this is going to happen. If I lose 30%, this is happening. And if I lose 40%, this is happening. And I've had to have a number of different models to work that out, but I've just made it really simple. If I lose half my customers, what do I do? If I lose 10% of my customers, what do I do? And then it helps you to think, okay, so at what point do what resources need to be redeployed, or do I need to invest into another area? One of the things that can be quite difficult in a recession to look at recession proofing is to figure out when to stop fighting for a particular product range or a particular area of your business. I used to work in the magazine industry, and I know when everything went to digital advertising, many organizations spent months and months and months in the 2008 recession fighting to get their advertising sales in print still happening. But ultimately, that was a fight that was never going to be won. And at my company, particularly that I worked for, we spent a good 8 to 12 months really investing in advertising and going after that business, when actually what we should have been doing is spending that 12 months looking at the digital. Now, if we'd have done a future business plan really well, we might have made that decision much earlier and not wasted the resources. So business continuity and contingency planning is important, and that links into the recession and the business planning. In terms of resilience of a business, focus on the customers you have and make sure that the customer experience they're having is absolutely fantastic. As we said, keep in contact with them and make sure you are going out of your way to give them all the wonderful, positive experiences that you know your team, the exemplary model that your team can give them, so that actually at the end of all this, they just come out thinking, wow, you're amazing. We're all hearing the stories of businesses that are either trying to take advantage or ask for bailouts, and there's lots of big companies out there that are maybe behaving in a way that customers don't think are right. So always remember, focus on your customer experience and go back to your why and look to do the right thing. I've talked about developing commercial plans, and as I said, make sure they're modular and keep connected. The more I talk to people, the more I talk to my contacts, the more information I get about what they think might happen. I heard yesterday from somebody from PwC. I learned from somebody who's working with the European Audit Commission about some of the projects they're working on. The more of that information that you have, the more that you can see what's potentially going to happen. Maybe some of your questions might be answered about the future. And then I watch and I'd wait and then move when the time is right. So that's a quick rundown of some business resilience sort of planning that I'm doing at the moment, and other people I'm speaking to are doing at the moment. So finally, just in the last few minutes, positivity. So it's a bit different to resilience. And yes, that is me laughing. That was the night before my wedding, so I was in quite a good mood. But positivity, and there is a study of positive psychology, which is the study of good life and the positive aspects of being human that make life worth living. And I suppose if you can sprinkle a bit of positivity into your workforce just for the sake of it, then it's going to make life worth living a little bit more. So I don't intend to go through all of these, and these are just some of the, I've got a book that I'm writing on positivity. So there's a number of things that you can do, but pretty much they fall into a number of categories. The first one is doing things for yourself and making sure you are positive and making sure that you are in the best good life kind of environment that you can be. And that could be having a mantra, it could be doing some yoga, could be practicing mindfulness, could be doing some self-talk, could be just smiling. It could be being grateful and being thankful for something. It could be learning a new skill. I'm a real personal development person, and if I learn something new and I feel like I've achieved something fantastic, setting a goal is another amazing thing that you can do for yourself and your business that gives you that sense of achievement. How many people have you seen at the end of a half marathon or a marathon that haven't ever run before, that just have got a beaming smile on their face? They might be dying inside, but they did it. They achieved it. They achieved something. That's a great sense of worth and value and positivity from that. There's also another group of things that you can do, which is for other people. So you can give a compliment. You can focus on somebody's strengths. You can ask if somebody needs some help and you can help somebody. You can create and send a visual reminder, send a thank you card, send a funny story. You can celebrate their success. You can spend some time listening. That might be a really positive thing to do for somebody else. You can, if you obviously at the moment you can spend time with your pets, but when we're through this situation, spending time with animals is another often positive thing to do for some people. You can create routine. I know that sounds a bit strange, that how would routine create positivity, but having a work break situation, having time off away from the screen is a positive, because you just switch off from everything, the brain reconnects, and then when you come back, you're oh yeah, I want to get back involved in this again. So some practical things there that you can do that will help you. Happy to talk through any of those later if people want some help. So just to recap, we've had some clarity hopefully about individual and team mindsets and resilience in a crisis, understanding the importance of leadership, how teams are resilient and how you can develop a resilient team, and the 4 aspects of a resilient team that are important, and then some practical tips around purpose, focus, coaching, communication, connection that will help improve resilience and mindset within your team. And just a final Rocky Balboa quote in terms of resilience, that to be honest, resilience is not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you hit but you still get up and you still keep moving forward. So resilience is not about how hard you can hit, how hard your business can be hit by this situation. It's actually about being hit and keeping moving forward. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Okay, thanks, Nicola. Nicola, we've got them coming up on the private one to me, so I'll just go through those. Start off with. Is there a document available as an example of the risk problem register?
Oh yes, I have got one of those. I will send that through to people. Yeah,
fabulous. HR challenge here for sure. A significant challenge for most SME business owners, management teams who are working hard at all the hard tasks. Without in-house HR departments, what would be a realistic action plan look like, say on a weekly basis?
Just repeat that for me.
Yeah. A significant challenge for most SME businesses owners or management teams who are working hard at all the hard tasks. Without in-house HR departments, what would be a realistic action plan, say on a weekly basis?
An action plan for what? Sorry, I don't understand the question. I'm sorry, I may be being a bit silly. A hard task for managing the people within the business, or a hard task of potentially making people redundant or furloughing and that kind of thing? Maybe the question could be asked a bit differently.
I'll come on and ask.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's my question. Basically, the management and leaders in the businesses are still working on the hard things, if you like, finance and the hard planning. And I just wondered, in a realistic kind of way, most of the businesses on the AGP program are fairly small. What would without in-house HR departments, they may have one HR person or somebody that's taking on part of a role. Just what it might look like as a realistic way of communication and engagement, really.
Yeah, okay, fine. Sorry, I understand now. I suppose, actually, I would say it needs to be as part of as part of the day job of the leaders, really. And it might be, as you say, we have got a small team. So if there's 2 or 3 leaders, maybe you split them up and say, right, okay, I'll take customer services and I'll take the manufacturing team and I'll take the marketing team, or I'll take finance and ops and I'll take the customer facing team. And really, I would it needs a bit of effort. So I would put it into the day. I would just send a little note to people. I'd ask them if they want a virtual coffee. If you're working on, I know everybody's working really hard, but I suppose it's about if there's an opportunity to keep connection with somebody. So if there's a task that you're working on and you feel that might grow somebody, you might be able to coach somebody, having that connection to have them work on the task with you would do quite a number of the things we talked about. It would keep communication, it would keep connections, it would be about collaboration, you'd help them grow and you'd coach them. I send a weekly, so for me, I'm a small business, I've got 9 associates in my team, I've got, up to, not many, customers. I've got sort of 100 or so customers in my history, and I work with small teams. So I send round a weekly digest, which is a 2-minute read, which I write every Monday morning. That goes out in the morning. It's just got my thoughts for the week in it, and it's not salesy at all, because it's going to my customers and my suppliers and my team. So it's just really what's happening to me in the week. I then do a team virtual lunch. We're having ours today at 12 o'clock. We just sit around, we have a bit of a virtual lunch. And then if I feel that I need to connect with more people when I'm having my break from my desk, and I do recommend everybody has a break, I will either have a virtual coffee with the person whilst I'm having my break, or when I'm on my walk in the afternoon, trying to get a bit of fresh air, I will ring somebody up. So I suppose it's trying to merge the things together. And then each day, I try to do a little WhatsApp, tell me what's been happening, and that's as simple as I do at the moment. So that might be some hints and tips there that would be helpful, Andrew, to help with the team when you don't have a HR department.
Yep, thank you.
I suppose you could, if you're a bit of a bigger business and you still didn't have a HR department. I mean, I mentor quite a number of one-to-one people in a number of different businesses, and so having somebody that is an external person, whether that be HR or a coach or a mentor, whatever, to do some of that one-to-one for you, you can pay for that resources, but obviously I'm not recommending that at this stage. In terms of businesses, I think we all need to make sure we're financially where we need to be before we start sort of outsourcing those things. But yeah, those, I do that for a number of businesses, and I just do a quick 30-minute call with some of the staff that I'm working with every week, just as an outsourced service for the directors, because they can't do it. Right, any more questions from your private side?
Not on my side now, unless anybody wants to come off the microphones and speak.
I'm looking to see if there's any in the chat. Don't think so in the chat.
I've got another one come up. What are you able to provide via AGP?
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go. I didn't. Yeah, sorry. I'd put that down. So on the AGP program, I work with a number of different organisations. I've worked on sales and marketing and commercialisation strategies before this time, and that was looking at helping smaller organisations be more commercial. So whether that be how to create a sales and marketing plan for the really startup individuals, right the way through to how to look at your product range and maximize either client AVOs, or looking at how you can get that client base to then be your tribe to get you more business. So referral programs, affiliate programs, things like that. I'm also then working with quite a number of the larger AGP organisations on transformation projects. So one company I'm working on cultural change, or we were before this at the moment they can't work. But before we came to this situation, we were working on transformational of culture. So we were looking at their vision, their mission, and their values, the stuff I talked about right at the beginning, making sure the directors are absolutely all online and North Star. And then from there, we're then working with a senior management team to make sure they were aligned. And then we were going to work with the champions within their business to widen that out and create the culture for the business. They're quite a large organisation, and they've got a culture, but it's not been developed in a very programmed way, or a very deliberate way. It's just grown, and some of the things that are growing are not necessarily right. So we want to transform that culture with the business. So I suppose that's my sort of two areas for AGP would be sales, marketing, commercialization, and then business, vision, mission, values, aligning the business so that you can transform the business and getting your senior team to be better leaders and those kind of things. So we can provide that. It depends on obviously what your outcomes are for AGP, but often it can be around sales and marketing, which is revenue, or it could be about resources, i.e. leadership development, and making the business move forward. That's what we've been doing so far on AGP. Does that answer the question? Everybody's gone quiet.
I know everyone's gone quiet now.
So somebody must have a burning silly question. Come on, there's always a silly question. I like the silly questions. They make me smile. And obviously this is all about positivity. So I'm trying to look at the questions.
Yeah, I think we've just got great presentation. You covered most things for people, I think.
That's good. I'm sorry it was so fast. I could obviously go into a lot of depth into all the areas and how you might practically do that, but I wanted to make sure we covered everything off today, really. I will make sure that I get a template for the risk register so that people can see that, and yeah, and the presentation will be available, obviously.
Yeah, I've got a copy of the presentation, so once we get the AG3s, the signatures back, then I can send those out to anybody that wants those. That's not a problem there. So
for people that are interested, you know, oh, huge topic. Yeah, fine. Be great to have a deeper dive into some of the points. Yes, Andrew, I agree. I was just about to say, you know, I'm a small business based in Cardiff. If you were at the beginning of the presentation, I've been around in business for over 25 years. I don't look that old, I know. But I set up my own organisation 3 years ago now. So in terms of a business consultancy, we've got 9 associates. And we cover everything off from security, finance, HR, sales and marketing, design, branding, leadership. You know, we cover all the gamuts, really, operational process, that kind of thing. But one of the things that we really important to us really is just keeping contact with small business owners and SMEs. And we really want to inspire action. We want to drive people for success, and we want to add value to individuals and companies. So I'm absolutely happy. If you look on LinkedIn, if you look on Twitter or Facebook, or if you want to send me an email, then please do get in contact with the AGP guys. I'm more than happy. If you want to ask me a question, or you just want a virtual coffee, you know, you'll never stop me talking, to be honest. But so on your head be it. But I'm more than happy to give people some free time. I just love doing what I do in terms of leadership and positivity. So that would be more than happy to offer that to people. If you just want to have a chat or pick up a particular question, then please either speak to your relationship manager or AGP, or just find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'll be happy to help.
Okay, thanks very much, Nicola. I got some tips for my kids now as well. I'll be phoning you for a virtual coffee, not a problem.
Here's just a very quick story that'll make you laugh at the end of the session. I often do this in my workshops, and I didn't do it today. I don't know why. It's unusual. The lobster story. So there's the lobster. I don't know if any of you know anything about lobsters, but when the lobster is born, it actually has to grow its outer shell, its hard coating. And actually, obviously, as it's young, it's growing and growing and growing, and it gets to a point where it gets too big for its shell. So it has to crawl out of its shell, and so it dislocates shoulders and it loses antennae and occasionally loses a leg. But it crawls out onto the ocean bed and it sits there, and it has to grow a new shell. The chemical, whatever, something happens in the water, and it grows a new, harder shell. And actually it grows back its legs, it regenerates. It's an amazing creature. Have a look at lobsters, they're amazing. But it doesn't do that just once in the first 3 years of its life. It does that 27 times, about 26, 27 times. That means that the lobster has to get really comfortable at being really vulnerable, at being uncomfortable. It's like you and I suppose, crawling out onto that ocean bed is like you and I walking down Cardiff High Street naked, really, isn't it? You know, we're very vulnerable. Everybody's looking at us. There's predators everywhere. That's not a good thing to feel. So whenever you're feeling, and whenever any of your kids or your team are feeling really uncomfortable, just say to them, just be a bit more lobster. Because by the end of whatever you're doing, you'll have grown a little bit, you'll have a harder outer coating, and you'll be much stronger than you were when you first started off.
Be a lobster, everybody.
Be a lobster.
We're from Friends, isn't it, with Phoebe? Dude, you're a lobster.
Yeah, actually, do you know what? I'll have to look at that. I don't know. It was actually from the NatWest Entrepreneurials Hub. I was in there for quite some time when I first started the business. And one of the books they give us is a story where the guy talks about the lobster. And I think it's a brilliant story. And it reminds me of when I'm doing something I'm not very happy with, I just say, just be a bit more lobster, Nicola, you'll be fine. Just be a bit more lobster.
Ah, fabulous. So we can all go off and be lobsters today now. And then if anybody does need Nicola's contact details, then we can get those out to you as well. But I think it's quite easy to find as well by the sounds of it on the sites there.
Yeah, if you just put Nicola Rowlett in the internet, the website's called the Nicola Rowlett Group, so you'll see the website as well.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for attending. Hope you have a good day.
Have a great one, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.